I'm here to talk about continuous integration, which is something I've been talking about for many, many years now, one of the foundational technical practices of Agile, but still, in my experience, insufficiently practiced, and particularly the automated testing. Everyone loves to talk a really good talk around automated testing. Who actually has, for let's say 80% of their teams, a suite of really solid unit tests that they can run in a few minutes, that they can get really good confidence that their software is releasable? Which is about representative. So, well done all those people in the room. That's great. You get 1,000 brownie points straight away for that, because that's hard. And but it's really, really important to get this stuff working. So that's my initial rant. I'll try and keep the rants to a minimum. Continuous delivery fundamentally is about making releases and deployments boring. If you have deployments where people are in the data center at the weekend and they have a miserable time, and I rock up and I'm like, we should move to continuous delivery, those people generally want to stab me in the face, because they're like, that thing that we just did over the weekend, you want me to do that more frequently? That's madness. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we want to change the fundamental way we work to enable us to put changes into production safely and sustainably during normal working hours by pressing a button, and if it goes wrong, you press another button, and everything is fine. And when me and Dave wrote the book in 2010, this is reasonably controversial, but what we found is that actually this is possible at scale in large, distributed, complex legacy organizations of all types, even in firmware. Who here has at least a couple of teams where you have that capability, where their teams can just press a button and things go into production and it's boring? Okay, a whole bunch of you. So that's really great. So we know that it can be done, but it's hard, and it takes a while. I don't want to lie about that. This is not something you can easily walk in and do. It requires you to change your relationships between the different departments. It requires you to change the way you think about code. It requires you to change your culture. So continuous integration is when you're frequently pushing code into trunk. Everyone is pushing code into trunk on at least a daily basis, and hopefully more frequently than that. Continuous deployment is when you push into trunk, into master, and the tests pass, you then push builds into production on a regular basis. So as the final stage of continuous integration, everyone's pushing into trunk, but we're also deploying to production as the last stage of that. That is, the end game. This was pioneered by people like Etsy and Flickr back in 2010, but it's not for everyone. And so continuous delivery is slightly different, and I want to be careful about the subtlety of this. It's about making sure your software is always deployable. So continuous delivery is not saying you have to deploy 10 times a day. Continuous delivery is about saying you should behave as if you were going to deploy 10 times a day, even if you're not going to do it. And reorganizing the way your IT department works to behave in that way has huge effects on the economics of the software development process. First of all, it makes releases painless, low-risk events. This is all about risk management, about making releases boring. But we also get a number of other benefits, perhaps the most important of which is reduced time to market. What we find is if you're regularly getting codes to the place where it's deployable, you can validate those changes against users and against performance testing, against security testing, right from the beginning of the development cycle. And you can get that feedback early on, and you can change your plans in response to that feedback. Organizations which do that, which do things like A/B testing, which do UX and user validation and security and performance testing right through the software development lifecycle, right from the beginning, they find it removes huge amounts of rework and huge amounts of replanning, and that gets you to market much faster than the competition, because you can also avoid doing the work that doesn't need to be done. The stats show that over 50% of features built provide zero or negative value to the business. And by regularly validating what you're building, you can get that feedback fast and avoid building those things. If you don't build them, you can get to market in less than half the time of the competition, because you've avoided building that stuff in the first place, and then you don't have to maintain it, by the way. The third benefit is by building quality in, we increase the quality of the software and its stability. And we have hard data. I've been working on a survey with some folks from Puppet Labs for the last few years. We have hard data from tens of thousands of people which show us that executing these practices results in much higher throughput and much higher stability in terms of time to restore in your production environment. So this stuff really is about good risk management. It's about making it faster, but also making it more reliable and more stable. We also reduce the cost of ongoing software development by making it cheap to evolve software and to change software as we go. We reduce the cost of ongoing software development. And finally, it makes people happy. If customers can report a defect and get that defect fixed within hours or days rather than weeks or months, that makes your customers happy. It also makes employees happy.